Home sellers jumped back into the market in record levels in the month of April, with the number of homes newly listed for sale up 65% relative to this time last year, and total inventory levels reaching the highest we've seen since the pandemic summer of 2020. So how is this impacting prices, and what does this mean if you're looking to buy or sell? I'm Adina with Adina YVR Vancouver Real Estate Group and Oakland Realty, here with your May 2024 market update. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at what's happening. The Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver reported that we had just over 2,800 sales in the month of April. This is up 17% relative to March, and it's up only about 3% relative to this time last year. Compared to the 10-year seasonal average for the month of April, we're down about 12%. Looking at this broken down by property type, we see while the sales of detached homes and condo apartments remained relatively flat relative to this time last year, sales of attached townhomes and duplexes increased 16% relative to April last year. While the number of sales has remained relatively steady, the pace of homes newly listed for sale has increased dramatically. In the month of April, we saw almost 7,100 homes newly listed for sale on the MLS. This is an increase of 42% relative to March, and it's up 65% relative to this time last year. And this is about 26% higher than the 10-year sales average for the month of April. And with this, we've seen an increase in total inventory levels. At the end of the month, we had just under 12,500 homes listed for sale on the MLS. This is up 18% relative to March, and it's up 42% relative to this time last year. Relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of April, we're up about 17%. So now that inventory levels have finally increased to levels that buyers were anxiously hoping for, how is this impacting prices? To understand where prices are headed, we want to look at the sales to active listings ratio, which is our leading indicator showing where the market's headed. And simply, this ratio is looking at the number of sales in a given month divided by the total active listings left over at the end of that month. When this ratio is above 20% for a sustained period of time, we typically see upward pressure on prices and we're in a seller's market. When this ratio is below 12% for a sustained period of time, we typically see downward pressure on prices and we're in a buyer's market. Anything in between 12 to 20%, we're in balanced market territory and prices typically stabilize. For the month of April, the sales to active listings ratio was 23.5%. This is down just 0.3% relative to March, and it's the first month that we've seen a slight decline after it increased consecutively from December to March. Looking at this by property type, we see that it's currently 17% for detached properties, so balanced market territory. For attached townhomes and duplexes, it's currently 31%, so very active seller's market territory. And for condo apartments, it's currently at 26%, which is again seller's market territory. So the surprising thing about the data is that yes, inventory levels have increased dramatically, but we're still technically in seller's market territory. And because of this, we've still seen prices continue to increase slightly relative to March. The HPI composite benchmark price for all property types is currently $1,205,800. This is up 0.8% relative to March, and it's up 2.8% relative to April last year. Broken down by property type, we see that for detached homes, the benchmark price is currently $2,040,000. This is an increase of 1.6% relative to March, and it's an increase of 6.3% relative to April last year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, the HPI benchmark price is currently $1,127,000. This is an increase of 1.3% relative to March, and it's up 4.3% relative to April last year. For condo apartments, the HPI benchmark price is currently $776,500. This is down 0.1% relative to March, yet it's still up 3.2% relative to April last year. So how is it that prices keep increasing despite these inventory level increases? One of the things that we're seeing consistently across different sub-market types is that most of the demand is concentrated in the lower price segments, whereas a lot of the inventory that's sitting on the market is in the higher price segments. So there's a mismatch between what buyers are looking for and what sellers are wanting to sell for. So let's take a look at an example here. If we look at the west side of Vancouver in the detached segment, this is notably the most expensive price segment in Vancouver, and we're still seeing the same price sensitivity. On the west side, in the month of April, we had 90 sales of detached properties, and we had 567 homes listed for sale at the end of the month. If we look at this ratio, it brings us to 16%, which shows balanced market territory. But if we take a look at this broken down by price segments, we see that the entry-level price point, which on the west side is under $2.75 million, we had 25 sales, and the inventory levels under $2.75 million were only 55 homes. So this brings us to a sales to active listings ratio of 45%. whereas the sales to active listings ratio of properties over 2.75 million is at 12%. So what we're seeing when we look at that overall 16% average is an average of two very different segments, a very hot segment in the entry-level price point and a much slower segment in the higher price points. And we see the same scenario on the attached segment. Looking again on the west side of Vancouver for attached, this would include condos, townhomes, and duplexes. We had 194 sales, and we had 879 homes still listed for sale at the end of the month. This brings us to a sales to active listings ratio of 22%. But if we look at this broken down by price point, we see that 135 sales, so almost 70% of the sales, were under 1.25 million, and only 59 sales were over that price point. Whereas with inventory levels, only 50% of the inventory, so 447 homes, were listed under 1.25%. So what it shows us is that in the price band under 1.25, we're actually at a 30% sales to active listings ratio. And if we're looking at it over 1.25, it's only a 14% sales to active listings ratio. So again, that blended average of 22% is really averaging two different markets, a very hot market, which is that price point under 1.25 million, and a softer market over 1.25 million, which is almost on the verge of a buyer's market. So what does this mean for you if you're thinking of making a move? Well, overall in the marketplace, we're definitely seeing that buyers have more selection and more time on their side while they're making their purchasing decision. Now, whether they have that negotiating room to negotiate a better deal really depends on the price segment you're looking in and the property type. And for sellers, the landscape is a lot more competitive right now, so you really have to make an effort to price your property sharply and to really stand out from the competition if you want to attract strong offers. If you're thinking of making a move and would like to schedule a consultation, you can do that simply. If you're watching this on YouTube, you could click the link down below here in the description, or if you're watching this on Instagram, just click the link in my bio. And to stay up to date with what's happening in the market, be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. Have a great rest of the month, and I can't wait to see you in June.